Ole, you are the CEO of Genki Instruments, and you work in Iceland, and you've made a new synthesizer called the Katla. Katla is a volcano that contributes 4% of the world's volcanic CO2, just from this one emissive point. I learned once when I went to Iceland that apparently, or so said, that an eruption in 1755 may have helped cause the French Revolution because it spoiled crops all over Europe and led to political change, which is to say that volcanoes in Iceland are really important. And here we have a volcano in Iceland that is now part of a synthesizer. And in this, I want to talk about how you designed a polysynth, a very unusual and grand and boutique and not cheap. People don't realize the work that must go into designing something like this. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. It's like, you know, the story of how you do it. What are the hard things? What do people not realize? And so can you talk a bit about what is your job title and how do you come to work in this company?
Yeah, thank you. First off, thank you very much for inviting me to talk about Katla. And like you said, the CO2 emissions of Katla, we are sorry about that. It was not our intentions. We don't control nature, unfortunately. We started out with this vision of a synth, and the idea of Katla came about because there was a lot of volcanic activity happening around Reykjavik at this point. We've had volcanoes erupting now every year. Katla is just a beautiful name and obviously a huge volcano.
I was going to say, Katla is actually the name of a real volcano.
Yeah.
And it's active.
And it's huge. Here we are exploring Katla, and we thought Katla would be in a nice mountain, but it's the size of Reykjavik.
What?
It's huge.
It's the
it's
size
huge. This guy was there hanging around. The first spark is actually a very personal one because I had been was diagnosed with major clinical depression, and I was going through that phase and figuring out what I wanted to do and going to therapy and working on my shit.
Yeah.
Like so many of us have to do. And then after that, that kind of emerged this idea that had been in me for a long time to create a synthesizer. And I would say that I maybe had the spark of the idea to have built a synthesizer inspired by Katla, but then it was very much a group project. Okay. I am not the only one. Although we are not many, but everybody contributes a lot to this project.
What was your what was the first idea? You know, in your head when you had the first idea, what is it? What is that spark?
So that's this is something about the Katla synth. I don't even, this is some kind of render. We didn't know anything what we were going to build. But it's a cool render. And then this is from a meeting in February 2024. We were just trying to spark ideas, see what we wanted to do. We had some ideas about what would be the inspiration. We had this idea initially to make this, use this Polygogo to build a polygonal VCO. So DCOs. And then the form factor of the Deckard Stream, the playful design of Teenage Engineering, the look and feel of Udo, and the kind of personal touch from Louvholten.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I totally see. That all makes sense now.
That makes sense.
Especially the Deckard's Dream, it feels kind of, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. I see the sort of echo of that.
Yeah.
Although, of course, it is its own thing. You literally put real pieces of volcano in it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I saw in all these tourist stores in Iceland, they are selling this disc or glass mats made out of volcano stone. And I thought, why won't you just make the sides should also be volcanic? So
you really were saying that the voice should be inspired by Katla. It wasn't. Did the voice inspired by Katla come after you thought of that, or did voice of Katla come first?
The voice of Katla came first.
Because that's it. Yeah. Why the voice of a volcano? What is the?
We just thought it was interesting to try to incorporate this kind of organic but still chaotic, unruly behavior and capture that in an instrument. So it's a very an artistic, you start somewhere and then you just go off and there are different tangents and making an album or something. It's a little bit the process was very much like that.
Okay. And so you have an idea, and how does it start coalescing? How does just this, this mood board start becoming a real thing for you?
When we set deadlines.
And
like
what was
setting
the
artificial deadlines is the best tool a CEO or a leader of something can do. Just
Yeah,
like we're
okay.
going to do it by that time, and we have a very very funny like brainstorming session, Katla trip. Yeah, we had like these are kind of like rough sketches.
How quickly did
Yeah.
this come about? How did you get to this point?
I think maybe a couple of months in,
Okay.
and we have like very interesting things like this. Like we wanted to incorporate like these spring reverbs that you could play with, and there are only like 4 Katla parameters, all of which are in like English.
Yeah.
And we have some like the section presets and the row presets. That kind of functionality came on pretty early. Separate kind of stereo image, like there, it's like it's okay, but it's like it still didn't feel quite right. But we still like needed to do something and build something. So not like we went from this to this to this to getting the PCB packs and having all the diodes incorrectly soldered. So Danny had to remove each one of them.
Wow.
And this is like yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So that basically took us here.
A year to get to this point where you have a kind of
Yeah, I would say like like 8 months, 10 months, something to get to here. This panel was made out of steel, so it was like really heavy, and we didn't know anything about mechanics. And that's gonna be like my kind of battle with like understanding and controlling mechanics, because we're all like engineers and like codes make sense.
I've never built a synth. What should I know about trying to build a synth with steel and lava?
It's yeah, like I would say just embrace yourself for a lot of pain.
Is there a reason why most synths don't have a steel front panel?
Yeah, there is, because it's very heavy, and like yeah, aluminum is just much better, malleable, easier. Like here, for your example, here there's like the front panel is cut here because it's much harder to bend it. Like we have this beautiful bend here, and like I think just being very humble is something that really helped us a lot in this process, because there are people that have been doing this stuff for a long time, and through this process they kind of found us, or we found them. Like the Gertz, for example, from Erica Synth, he's like the godfather of the project. I just cold emailed him, had met him at a trade show or something, and he just took us like and like led us to all the right people in Latvia.
Yeah, to make these parts.
Yeah, and then we were just painting it to make it look good, and then we took it. Talking about most artificial deadlines ever. This is in the city of Húsavík, known from the Eurovision Song Contest. And we had like there was like a design thing happening there, but the real attendants were soccer moms. So Kári was explaining this new concept of a synth to soccer moms that did not maybe know what the synthesizer was. So but it was a great deadline, and kind of give us to that all the way to that.
The point was you got a working prototype.
Yeah.
And my question was going to be, how do you arrive? You obviously been thinking a lot about the external form factor, but what about the voicing? Like, how do you said volcanic, but how did you actually go about making a volcanic voice?
Yeah, exactly. How do you make something volcanic? And like, of course, it's very open-ended and an open question and all the good stuff. But I think a lot of that credits to our main sound designer, Kári. He's just a brilliant producer and like absolutely amazing at what he does. And he took a lot of his favorite ideas from many synths and like stole the best ideas, I guess, or borrowed them, or whatever you want to call it, and kind of fused them together in a novel way. And the way that it originally designed the synth, because working with analog hardware is very tough and it's very non-forgiving, is that for the first year or year and a half, we just had a huge VCV rack patch where we took all the ideas and we kind of sculpted them into something that makes sense. Like, and then the ideas of this kind of like, it all came from a big modular patch, and that's kind of so it's a subtracted synthesizer, but it's still like with a caveat, right?
To what extent did it sound like this sounds? How close were you at that point sonically?
I feel that like the end result is like 10 times better, but I think the concept-wise was we were close enough to like know that this is like, it makes sense as a whole.
It's this thing of, how do you know that you've actually got it? How do you know you've done it? And especially at that stage, you've got to be confident that if we carry on spending loads of money and paying all these people, at the end of it, we're going to have a thing that actually sounds really good. And I suppose, like, how do you know that?
I mean, I think a lot of it just goes to taste. Like, how do you know a piece of music is wonderful or nice? Like, it resonates with you, and then you go into the world and you show your colleagues. Like, we have a great, like, a lot of amazing musicians in Iceland that are our friends, and we just take it to them and like show them, and then we get feedback and we iterate really quickly that way. This is really funny. Like, we're being like,
I know, everyone's just like, you know, woo, woo, woo. Where's my? Oh yeah, you know, I've got. Oh wait, there you go. I also have this one, which. If you say anything especially brilliant, you'll get that. So, can we see the picture of the final synth, or like, you know, what? I suppose actually a better question to ask at this point is, you know, where was it at in? Do you have a close-up of the panel of that machine?
Yeah.
And so we can see how it differs, because obviously, you know, I can guess that when you start to make a physical box, you get to a point where you start to box yourself in terms of design. And to what extent were you free to change it? Because I'm just conscious that it's one thing to have a VCV rack, but you VCV rack patch. You're going to change your mind. You're going to be informed by the testing.
Yeah.
So how much did it change, and how did you make changes to the design as you got feedback?
Yeah, it was just a very like short feedback loop of like getting feedback, trying things out. On the panels, like you will see, like they're usually, we'll just have like tape over them and change the parameters that way to like see how it felt to use it in like a...
This begs the question also, like what is Katla's voice? Is it digital or is it analog? Or
yeah, so this is like getting a little bit closer. Yeah, so the voicing of the final one, like this is very, I would say this is a lot closer than the final one. Like here we have a high pass filter still, and the Katla parameters still are like in English. But here we're getting like the reverb and drive a little bit closer to what we have on the final one.
Is it digital?
So the bulk of the sound processing is analog. The things that are digital are the reverb. It's inspired by like a 80s plate kind of lexicon kind of thing. And then the modulation calculations are all digital, and the voicing, like the oscillators are digital.
Yeah.
And that was all just like that we chose in the end. And I can bring up the final panel so I can talk about that for a bit. Is this one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So for example, we have these landed on these things like the phase distortion, and that is only possible with a digital oscillator because you change the phase. It's like a pulse width modulation, but you extend that across all sine wave or all shapes. But the rest is analog circuitry. Like the circuits themselves are gorgeous.
When you described it's like, you know, you're not a big company. How are you all working on a daily basis as you check in with this? You know, and who's got power of veto and kind of? Is it you who gets to say, nah, this is how it's going to be in the final version? How do you collaborate basically as a team?
Wow. I think it's my job first and foremost in this project is just to create a space for things to happen. Like I have personally never vetoed anything, not that I know of, but maybe the guys will disagree.
Yeah, you're like, you made a face.
Yeah. No, I think it's been just like a collaborative effort, and I think opinions are beautiful if they are the right ones.
Said like a true CEO. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
How many are you all in the same office? Are you all in Iceland, or are you in other countries as well?
We are quite like the team is basically like three main guys. Like this is like the team here: me, Kári, Markus, and Danny. This is like the team that brought it all the way here. And Markus, like the worst thing is working with talented artists is that like he just spun up another company like while he was working for us and like started selling beautiful art. And now he's like, I don't have time for you guys anymore. But it's all good. And so we are the three, and then we have two that kind of are also a big part of the project that have come to work with us. Like this is Henrik, he's the main analog audio guy, and he's been working in Swedish studios for decades and repairs like old and analog gear for a living. And we'll just basically fly them out to Iceland, and then we'll have like a hack section.
Okay.
And I don't know if like you can see this, but this image, for example, here, was taken at I think it's like 4:30 in the morning. So we
What?
are working like all night.
What?
Yeah.
So what's a hack? What did you call it? It was a hack session, or
Like a hack session, like a sprint or
a
whatever.
makeathon type.
Yeah.
What describe that sort of event? What does that mean?
We'll basically pay for their flights and get some accommodations, and then we just stay at the office for like 16 hours a day.
Okay.
And it gets very kind of like 4:18 or something, and then like at like 30 minutes later we have some sound.
I don't know if we can hear this, but we.
Yeah. Well, just
you
imagine.
Need to try and imagine like the greatest sound ever. It sounds
oh
like.
wow, it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like but this is like very much like the part of the process for us, and then bringing it to artists and letting them play with it. Like you can see, like we just like do whatever we need. Like this is just like some kind of cover to change the.
I see.
Yeah. The panel.
Are you remote collaborating a lot of the time? Is there kind of with those people who are designing the analog circuits, are they mostly working remote? And then you're like, we're going to come in and we're going to work intensively. This is all part of the artificial deadlines. Just like move it on.
It's been a little bit, it's definitely been like that. Like there's just some magic that happens when you're all in the same room, and like I think we really innovated on so many levels of Katla that like would have been impossible if we just did it like separately. For example, like it's a digital oscillators, but in reality, like the processor is like a very, very powerful ARM processor, and it's running Linux, and we made our own custom version of Linux to boot really quick and be very snappy and only do audio processing.
Yeah. You talked about the analog boards have M2 are made for M2.
Yeah. I really want to find so I can show you.
Can I just check that what I think that means is M2 is the name of the sort of little hard drive chips that go in computers.
Yeah, for sure.
So you took the same format and kind of hacked it and turned it into something else.
Exactly. Yeah, just to be able to quickly like prototype. So you can like have like, for example, here we have 5 filters. I can't quickly find the photo of it, but like just imagine that it's like these small boards, and one of them is like taking the audio stream, 32 channel audio stream from the Linux device and spitting that out as both audio signals and control signals.
Yeah.
So these are all like audio rate signals that we're sending to the analog stuff, and that gets feed into a filter. And that means that we can just take the filter out and replace it with something else and prototype it really quickly that way.
So you don't have to build a whole new PCB.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was truly extremely powerful, and it doesn't really impacted the way that we worked on a fundamental level, because, for example, the CMOS circuit, it's like it has a MOSFET made to sound like a huge, like a drive kind of cabinet thing. And that introduced like a lot of like noise, and like being able to like pinpoint it down to exactly this module, like it saved us like weeks of work.
Okay, I see. And how, as you're going through this process, how are you sort of, like we talked about whether you have power of veto, but there is just someone's got to be in charge. Someone has to be going, you know, this is the right decision, this is the wrong decision. We need to move on. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
You know, how is that done? You know, and how do you?
I'll admit it. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll create the artificial stuff and like move the project along, but it's made purely out of love.
Yeah. Well, because you've got to, in the end, you have to make decisions. Presumably, you could work for as long as you want. Did you have like a list of these are my hopes and desires, and these are everything that is unsolved? How did you stay on top of that? Because just with lots of moving parts and lots of different people, I just don't know. It feels I can't really gather how you would.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's very good to have like a direction, but when you have creative people that do a great job, you have to trust them, and like you can't fight against this kind of creative. Like there's gonna be tensions everywhere, and like. People obviously have a lot of other stuff happening in their life while they're doing it, like raising children or their parents getting having disease or whatever. Like it's like life happens in the meantime. So like you just have to be very patient and trust that the people that you kind of gravitated towards the project, like that they will deliver, and at least that's how I done it. And I know that like for many people that would never work. Like for traditional like. Brick and mortar shops or like larger dev teams, it wouldn't work. But since we're only like 5 people,
But I imagine there's still, you've got a reality that you know you have to release a product by a certain point, otherwise you're going to run out of money. That's just the reality. At that point where you were having your hackathon, how far were you from the end?
Well, we had several hackathons. I think we brought the team 4 or 5 times to Iceland to do like these hackathons at various points in the process. Like some of the things are just like getting the like sounds from the panel. Here's like I think Matt at like a very early prototype. Like yeah,
that's the face you're looking for.
Yes, exactly.
Was that great?
Yeah.
You're working with lots of other external people. You know, do you get, to what extent do you trust other people's opinions or your own? Do you know what I mean? Like, at what point was there ever a point where someone external is like, "What you're doing, it shouldn't be like that," and you disagree?
So many times, yeah.
And what do you do then?
We trust ourselves.
Yeah.
I think it's also in this day and age of AI, like, and all this like artificial stuff happening. Like, we are the ones with bodies. We can feel it if something's right or wrong. So let's try to use that wisdom, try to use that kind of presence to make decisions instead of like, I
think you're also speaking to that Steve Jobs thing where he said that, you know, if you'd asked what people wanted, they would have said a faster horse. No, it's a Henry Ford quote.
Henry Ford quote,
of course.
Exactly.
Steve Jobs didn't make a car that we know of.
Well, for example, like this is an example of like a phase where we were just trying out different colors for the front panel. Then we got like a bunch back, and we just have to kind of, you know, decide the tint of black, for example, in the final unit. I don't know how well it comes across here, but I think we went like 4 or 5 times back to the people that are manufacturing it to get this perfect tint of black.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's volcanic for you.
Yeah.
Also, can we just talk about you mentioned, and it seems appropriate at this point, you said all the parts, all the knobs and the switches and the things are custom.
Yeah. So
when you say that, I mean, I know what I think that means, but really, what does that mean? You know, how does that work?
That means that this is these are the bare custom parts that we get from our partners, and it means that you form a personal relationship with these wonderful people that you're working with. And when your parents are in China, you meet them for dinner. And this is Kathy from All Winner Electronics, and she's fantastic. And I'm expecting a baby girl, so she is giving me this beautiful what do you call it? Like a blanket? Or?
Yeah, that's like a baby cloth.
Yeah, like a baby cloth.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's very sweet.
And that's kind of like...
Because when I hear the words, you know, we have completely custom parts for our synth, that to me says, wow, that sounds expensive.
Yeah.
That sounds really painful and expensive and difficult.
Oh my God.
And so can you talk about that?
And these buttons here, these are also custom that we made from scratch.
Why?
Because don't you think they look good?
Yeah, I do. But I suppose that's the question: is other people haven't made that choice, and so why did you make that choice?
Because we were beginners.
Yeah, we didn't know not to.
Yeah, if I'm being completely honest, and like just the way to kind of like, this button is custom. This is a light guide, but it didn't fit all the way to the PCB, so we 3D print out of TPU this light blocking material to make so that it doesn't spread all over.
Your own little pipes.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and like these sliders here are all custom, especially prevalent with this center detent. So we had to pay extra for that and extra for grease.
Why? Like, why are they? Surely those exist, or are they? Is it a length that you needed that was not available?
Yeah, it's the lengths, and well, maybe the center detents, they exist. Yeah, you're right. But like if you feel like how,
you mean the grease? You wanted a grease level that was not. You weren't happy with the grease level that was no. Fair enough. I agree. Because grease, can we talk a bit about grease?
Yeah, let's please talk about
because my favorite. Not something I often say in interviews, but I actually think is a really important thing because it's. Did you know that it's grease that makes the thing work? And that's why the famous thing of, hey, my Juno 60s faders are crap. Just spray cake deoxit into the fader. It's bad advice because what you do is you flush the grease out. And so talk about grease and can you speak to grease and resistance and the feel of parts and why, what is important to you about them and what do people get wrong?
Wow. There's so much to talk about actually, because I've been in communication with a lot of different vendors, and it's always about finding the right partners. And I've spent a lot of time on Alibaba in message with different vendors, because the vendors in China are the ones that make these stuff, and they have like factories that we've been in business for decades. And then just like I think at least what's worked best for me is just to treat them like your equals and just be like not be afraid to ask for things. And usually like it's amazing what they can do, and the turnaround time is just absolutely amazing. And for example, with the grease, it's all measured in this like nanometers per, like I forget the name, but it's like the torque, and you just name a number that you think is very high, and then maybe they can get 70% of that.
How do you even know what number to ask for? You're like,
I don't know.
Do you like go to your car and like move? How do you know what is the feel? And was it because people were moving them and going, it just feels crap?
Yeah,
or it just doesn't feel volcanic.
Exactly, and I think that's also a good part to think about, to discuss the price and because we wanted to create an instrument of tremendous quality, and for me, quality speaks in like to have an expensive like thing and have it not feel good to use. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's so wrong. It's like
I totally hear you.
And like we are making an instrument that should be played and enjoyed. And if you don't enjoy working with it, like it's like a guitar that feels off. Like it's not worth it. Yeah.
Let's talk about the volcano in the knob. Where is that lava from?
So I'm happy to report that this lava is from environmentally sourced.
I'm not even sure there is an alternative, is there? Because lava's, you got a lot of it in Iceland. I mean, it literally just comes out of the ground.
Yeah.
But can you just take it?
No, you cannot. No, you cannot take it. Yeah. No. That's absolutely forbidden. And like, I'm not encouraging anyone. If you go to Iceland, you're forbidden for taking rock from the island.
Okay.
Just to make that clear. That's But this is actually sourced when they're like paving for roads and stuff like that.
Do you know its origin? It's Icelandic, obviously.
It's definitely Icelandic.
Do we know where it is? It from Katla, or is it from another?
As far as I know.
Okay, well, I don't want to say it's not from Katla, because you'd be really pretty pissed if you get Katla for.
Yeah.
But it's from Iceland, and it's from the same source.
Yeah, but we had to like find out a way to also treat the rock so it didn't like spill over. So we had to figure out a way to kind of like treat it with. Is it obsidian? What is it? It's basalt columns. Yeah,
okay.
It's like the most common rock in Iceland. It's like Iceland is like 90.
Is it the same thing? Like you go to Reynisfjara Beach and there's like the kind of hexagonal sort of like, I've seen that anyway. I've been on a beach and it's nuts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like made from similar material. Yeah.
I mean, Iceland, if anyone is, as if we need to plug it, but it is an absolutely bonkers place in terms of its sort of landscape and geography. I remember we were driving through the south part of Iceland on a trip with my wife, and I just would look out the window and I just said, "Stop the car!"
Yeah,
like stop the car. There's something really weird outside, and in every direction there was just like these green lumps. The whole world was just green lumps, and it was like a weird sort of, every lump was about this big, and it was like a sort of alien planet, and it was just up to the horizon. And I was like, what is this? And it was volcanic flow, and it was from a flow hundreds of years ago that was written about in the history books, and it's just stopped and become covered in moss.
Was that what we're in the south part?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the one that you referred to before. Yeah, the Molharindin. Yeah.
It is nuts.
It's nuts. And it's like I think the biggest like moss bed in all of Europe, at least. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's probably offsetting the volcanic carbon dioxide all by itself.
Yeah. So we get it like the gray version, and then we kind of didn't like the color or the texture of it, so we figure out a way to make it darker and.
Okay, you treat it and then because
Yeah.
I know this from this is like very first world problems. From I was looking into getting concrete tabletops for the kitchen, and you've got to treat them, and it's got all of these things to think about.
Sure.
And I suppose all of this leads us to this question of cost.
Yeah.
We're talking about the cost of the parts, the cost of the pounds. We've talked a lot about you have a desire for cost, and so let's talk about the price of this thing because, like, this is quote unquote. We were talking about this before. I could say that this is expensive, but you might say to me, but it's not expensive for what's in it. And there's this sort of, we are definitely, I think, as a sort of industry affected by mass production and the fact, the amazing cost of having things made in China, like incredible manufacturing power, but also can bring the cost of things down. Can you talk a bit about how you work out the final price of this? How do you set a limit on what it is and a sort of base point, and because I know that without having to ask you, I am sure there are still compromises that have to be made to get to the price that this is. And so can you talk about how do you decide on the price? Where do you draw the line? How is the price of this calculated?
So like with the pricing, I think it's always a tough question, and like you're obviously a part of a much bigger industry, and we are also based in Iceland. That's like frequently ranked as one of the most expensive countries in the world.
I can also say on that trip with my wife, we used to race to get back to the bar during happy hour. Yeah. Because I was like, this is going to cost us dearly if we don't make it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like the cost of living is high. The wages cost are very high. It's very hard to ship things to Iceland. And there's a premium on that for sure. And then we also felt like that the only way that we could like compete or be of any relevance in this industry is to place ourselves in the higher echelon of like the market. And unfortunately, we had the opportunity to make that decision early on, and that basically made the design and of everything take that into account. So if we felt like the sliders weren't like didn't have enough texture, or like any of this didn't feel completely premium, we had to discard it off the table.
Yeah.
And that was really I think a blessing in disguise for us. But like the raw cost of Katla is, of course, and then R&D, as you can see, like 2 years of hard work, although it's a small team. And then the just cost of the electronics and even the cost of the CPU has like 50% up since we first got the Katla because of the RAM shortage.
Oh, is it? You're affected by that too?
Yeah, absolutely. But like in general, like it's like one just to manufacture one Katla is like more like one fourth of the price.
You mentioned before this rule of thumb, which I've heard from Dave Rossum, is that it's about 1/5 of the final cost is the parts price. Exactly. Dave Rossum said, and I quote, "You have to charge 5 times the parts cost if you want to stay in business."
Yeah, exactly. And if you just do the calculations, like the final price is 5,000, then we take off the VAT. For most countries in Europe, it's like 20% of that. Then you have maybe a retailer or distributor that take 30% of that. So it leaves very little. And then the shipping cost for us if you're shipping it directly. So like it's all like, of course, like we are not like a distributor superpower, or like we haven't been like built these supply chains or anything like that. We are making it just like it's like a David versus Goliath thing. Like we have to make a really good sledge or whatever.
And you're not. How many are you making?
We're making 100.
100.
Yeah. And they're like we are hammering in the serial numbers by hand on the back.
That to me does not speak volume pricing either. Also because that's the other thing with buying things like knobs and faders and stuff. It's like, sure, we can have a conversation if you're buying 10,000, or so you presumably have to pay far more. Will you make more, or will you make more than 100 eventually, or?
That's yet to be decided, but depending on how well this goes, I think we'll have a discussion about that. But like sourcing things and stuff, which has been my job, is basically like finding good partners, being upfront with them, and then the best ones will just like exclude themselves from the get-go, but the other ones like lead you along, and they're like, oh, but the minimum order quantity is 20,000.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's done. When you look at this panel, what do you feel and think about? What do you want? There's a lot, perhaps. I mean, one way of phrasing this question is the thing that, you know, in demo videos and pictures, what to you are the things that don't come across in videos very well? Now that you have the final instrument, and can you reflect on the feature set and where you ended up and what does it do? And how well did you make on your promise to make a volcanic synth?
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I might be a bit biased, but I think it's beautiful. And I think the concept, we're able to keep the concept clean enough or simple enough such that we can hand it to a keyboard player or synth player and they will immediately understand it and grasp it, and they will start playing without us having to tell them what it does. And I'm very happy that we managed to keep the screen away, because God knows that we could have done it, because it's not like it's a very specific just decision to say no, say no to screen. Yeah, and yeah, and like I think the feature set, of course, like you can always go back and forth and discuss like, but I think for what Katla, it's just it's a unique way to it's a unique instrument and it's a beautiful whole. And of course, there are things that you think about, reflect on after the fact that you could have done different. But I think on the whole, I'm extremely, just grateful and proud, and a little bit shell-shocked at the moment because we are delivering the first units. We already sold more than half of the 100, so we're delivering all of them next week. So, but all in all, I think because I'm becoming a father and I'm like reflecting on that, and I think there's nobody that I've met that has kind of admitted to me that they regret like becoming a father, and all with the ups and downs and everything. And I kind of feel a little bit similar, not to make this about
this is not, but it's kind of your child.
Yeah, no, you carried it with you, and like through the ups and downs and everything for 2 years. So yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Oli. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and check out the Katla. Buy now. Cool. Buy a Katla.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Cool.